Welcome to another edition of This Week in Jewish History. This week marks the 120th anniversary of the passing of a very important, but unfortunately not well-known leader of American Jewry, Rabbi Sabato Morais. Morais was born in 1823 in Livorno in the north of Italy to a family descended from Portuguese immigrants. He received a traditional Jewish education in Italy. And in 1846, Morais traveled to London to become head of Judaic studies at the orphan school belonging to Bevis Mark Synagogue, the old traditional Spanish-Portuguese synagogue of London. 5 years later, in 1850, Morais was invited to assume the position of Chazan, cantor and overall religious functionary at the historic Mikveh Israel Synagogue of Philadelphia, which also followed the traditional Spanish-Portuguese rite. In late 1864, while in Philadelphia, Morais became involved in one of the lesser-known episodes in the history of Jews in America. He met with other leaders to found a seminary in Philadelphia for the training of rabbis that would serve America's growing Jewish population. The seminary, opened in 1867, was named Maimonides College, and it featured some of the more prominent Jewish teachers and leaders in America at the time, including Reverend Isaac Leeser, who you can see here on the top, as well as the famous scholar Dr. Marcus Jastrow, who you see here on the bottom. Unfortunately, Maimonides College was not able to obtain enough financial support from the community and only lasted for 6 years. Which brings us to Moraes' next major project. Morais had been bothered for a long time by the growing forces of reform sweeping through American Judaism for some time. With the adoption of the radical Pittsburgh platform by the Reform movement in 1885, which essentially negated almost all of Jewish ritual law, Morais felt that it was time to act. Along with other traditionally minded scholars and leaders, Morais helped found the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. While later, in the days of Dr. Solomon Schechter, JTS would take on a more liberal-minded approach to Jewish law and really become the training ground for conservative rabbis, at its founding, the conservative movement did not exist, and the seminary was founded with very traditional mindedness and specifically had the goal of training traditional rabbis who would help stem the tide of reform in the United States. A rather interesting element of Moraes' life story is related to President Abraham Lincoln. A great admirer of Lincoln, in a sermon given just a few months before Lincoln delivered his famous Gettysburg Address, Morais spoke of the United States as having risen, quote, 7 years ago. He also said that at that time, again, quote, God brought forth this great gift of freedom that is America. The sermon was published, and although there's really no way of proving it, some claim that Lincoln saw the sermon and used the very same unusual phrases used by Morais. When Lincoln was assassinated, Morais delivered an emotional eulogy and collected money from his congregation towards the erection of a monument to the slain president. Sabato Morais passed away in 1897. Sadly, he is not widely known, but he should stand as an example of a devoted leader who contributed much to the furtherance of traditional Judaism in this country. Thank you for listening, and have a good day.